Good evening. My name is Barkha Dutt. You're watching the Mojo Story. We are taking a closer look at what's happening in Punjab, where some say after several false steps, the Congress may have finally got it right. But has it really? And will there be a domino effect in other states like Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh? Let's bring up our big political story on the program this evening. Punjab's first Dalit Chief Minister has begun his first day by taking a swipe at the Aam Aadmi Party. Addressing his maiden press conference, one in which he described Rahul Gandhi as a revolutionary, the Chief Minister spoke about how he was the real Aam Aadmi, taking a swipe at his main challenger, Kejriwal's party, as he spoke about how his father came from poverty and in fact used to fix tents. There was an interesting caste calculus there, with Navjot Singh Sidhu being described as the man who will lead the party into the elections. That prompted another Congress leader, Sunil Jakhar, to describe the situation as baffling. So the factionalism within the Punjab Congress continues to simmer, but political observers say the combination of a Dalit Sikh Chief Minister and a Jat Sikh head of the Congress in Punjab could throw up an interesting set of challenges for those who had written off Punjab. Of course, all of this is happening even as questions are being asked as to whether this will lead to changes in chief ministers in Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh as well. So an interesting set of political developments. Some might say counterintuitive to say that the Congress has got it right with the exit of one of its most high-profile chief ministers, Amarinder Singh. Let's introduce our guests on the program today as we decode Punjab. Tavleen Singh, veteran journalist, somebody who has spent many decades reporting all kinds of issues, but also comes from Punjab, joins us on the program today. We're also joined by a veteran journalist from Punjab, Prabhjot Singh. He's been the bureau chief with the Tribune. We're joined today by Congress supporter and political analyst Sujata. Also joining us is political analyst and a psephologist Rahul Verma. He's with the Center for Policy Research. And Professor Hilal, Ahmed, a political analyst, is joining us as well, who has often raised tough questions about how the Congress continues to look at politics through the old prism. Let me start with you, Sujata. The fact is that there were many false starts in the course of a day. 4 different candidates were named or speculated upon before finally Punjab got its chief minister. But even now, the fact is you have one chief minister and another man that the party in charge, Harish Rawat, says will lead the state into the elections, which is, of course, Navjot Singh Sidhu. So has the chaos really been settled? Sujata?
Yes. I feel that we'll need to wait and watch for a few more days. But what I can see is that there, a number of issues have been raised, laid to rest. Because if you look at what Captain Amarinder Singh said, was he was feeling very insulted. And that is the one point which was coming across really strongly. However, when Captain Amarinder Singh tweeted and congratulated Mr. Channi, that shows that he's not going to revolt in a manner against the entire Congress if Mr. Channi is in place. Now, as far as Mr. Channi is concerned, you can see that he is being projected as a hardcore Congress person, and he's coming across as one when he talks about the leadership. The leader that he has spoken about is Rahul Gandhi. And then what happens is that a number of factions have come out and shown their happiness in this particular choice. So he will have a greater responsibility in taking everyone along. This might be something that the Congress party has done and is being seen as a great move, but we also have to wait and see how he takes everybody along. And I have a feeling that he will be able to do it, because the main problem would have been Captain Amarinder Singh speaking out against a person who was seen as a supporter of Mr. Sidhu. So that has been laid to rest, and I have a feeling that things are going to be really much better, because if you look at the Dalit population.
Yeah, sorry, before you come to that, you're saying the main challenge for the Congress was to calm Captain Amarinder Singh down, and you believe that has happened?
Exactly, and if you look at the, everybody was saying that there has to be a judge sake. So this is a move from there. And when we are talking about Punjab, definitely we are a welfare state. We have to take everyone along, and the weakest, link is always that part of the population which has to be brought forward. And if you look at the secular agenda, I'm calling it an agenda, but it's not in the manner in which BJP considers agenda. What I mean is it in a positive sense. The constitution says very clearly we are a welfare state. Everybody needs to be brought forward. So I have a feeling this is going to make an impression on the minds of the people, that it's not the regular run of the mill equations that have been considered.
Okay.
And yes, so that's what I
Okay,
feel.
okay. Let me just get Prabhjot now into the conversation before I open it up, because he's really on the ground, unlike the rest of us who are reporting this story from afar. Mr. Singh, you've been seeing Punjab for years. This caste combination, and there's no getting away from it. With a leader like Amarinder Singh, it probably didn't matter. But with this combination, there is one eye on the Dalit vote, another eye on the Jat Sikh vote. But the fact is, we don't know if the party will in fact rally behind Navjot Singh Sidhu. And the comment by Harish Rawat that Sidhu will be the man to lead the party into polls has already been called baffling by Sunil Jakhar in a very public tweet today. So do you think that the Congress has been smart, or do you think things are still chaotic?
You see, Barkha, we must understand Punjab in a different way. Punjab has always been a pioneer in Indian politics. Coalition government started from Punjab. Last six governments, at least six governments in Punjab were coalition governments. And nobody talked of caste system. People talked of a Sikh chief minister or a Hindu chief minister. You see, Punjab is now you have Congress announced two deputy chief ministers, one chief minister. You see, out of four people, three people, they named one Dalit chief minister. That's a welcome step. So therefore, for the first time, we are going to have a Dalit chief minister. But does it mean the urban Sikh, who is not Jat Sikh, where does he go? He is about 15% of the population. Then there are Muslims. Then there are Christians in Punjab. So when you are talking of caste system or religion, I don't think so. This is going to work that way. The way.
But what about the role of Sidhu? How would Sidhu be perceived among the caste groups that you have described?
You see, now Sidhu is a landless farmer, Jat Sikh. He doesn't do any farming anymore. He is Jat Sikh by caste, not by avocation. Not by avocation. He's not a farmer. And he being like in BJP earlier, and then with the BJP Akali Dal government, and now Congress, people view him as a good, clean man. But is he connected with people? He has a following as a cricket player or as a small screen or show thing.
So you're saying he's not taken seriously as a politician? He's not.
Political contribution is, I think, is not significant, not enough to make him a political leader of Punjab.
So let me ask you this before I go to Tavleen. Do you believe today the Congress with this combination is going into the elections with an advantage, or do you believe the Aam Aadmi party still has the advantage, Prabhjot?
No, Congress has lost the advantage. You see,
lost the advantage.
Advantage because Jat Sikh vote will be cut off from Congress.
Okay, let me bring in Tavleen. Tavleen, Amarinder was somebody who, in the last election at least, was able to transcend perhaps these caste divisions with the force of personality, also with the perceived royalty tag. So there were both of those things, also seen outside of Punjab, even among BJP voters as a nationalist soldier. But now there are many people who are arguing that his popularity had actually slipped, and no matter how clumsily the Congress has handled this, in the end they've been smart. They've been smart by installing, because it is an installation, installing a Dalit chief minister. How do you see this?
I don't agree with you at all in that analysis. One, it's very hard to understand what the Congress party was trying to achieve. If, for a start, I want to say, as a Jat Sikh, do you know that the one thing that is forbidden in the Sikh religion is caste? Must be Sikhs. or Dalit Sikhs eat at the same langar as Jat Sikhs do. And the whole religion was started on the basis of caste. So to make caste into such a big deal in Punjab is, to me, indicates that that the Congress party sitting in Delhi, or at least the heirs of the dynasty, have not fully understood this state. Secondly, what I don't understand is, if uh, Amarinder Singh was unpopular, then why did they not find out why he was unpopular and rectify that, instead of trying to replace him with a man who you've just heard the former, editor of the Tribune say has no political base in Punjab. I mean, the man is without a base, and now you've got a so-called Dalit chief minister. What is he going to do for the Dalit Sikh
Why,
community?
why do you say so-called? He is a Dalit chief minister. He
He's
opens
a Sikh.
his innings.
He's a Sikh. Don't go on about this, Dalit and Jat and all this sort of business. The Jat Sikh and the Mazbi Sikh eat at the same table, at the same langar. We don't have this big caste issue as you think. I mean, that's the reason for the Sikh religion. It was against the caste system. So, I mean, basically, if the Dalits were feeling that they weren't getting enough of a voice, then that should have been rectified, not tokenism. How does tokenism help in the last 3 or 4 months of an election? What is he going to do? Is he suddenly going to change all the equations, and every minister is going to be a Dalit and the Jats are going to be pushed under the table? None of this makes any sense to me at all. In fact, what it comes to me as proof of, because last time, by the way, every poll said that the Aam Aadmi party was going to win. Do you remember?
Yeah.
NDTV went out, your former employers went out on a limb. They made this huge prediction. They danced around the state, the best of their reporters, and they said the Aam Aadmi party was going to win by miles, right? And if Amarinder Singh proved them wrong, it was because the Akalis made some mistakes, which he seemed to be able to rectify. Now, if he has made some mistakes, if he failed to do certain things, surely that is what should have been rectified, rather than change the chief minister three or 4 months before an election.
So you continue to believe, Tavleen, before I go to Rahul and Hilal, that the ouster of Amarinder Singh, especially in the manner in which it's happened, is a political mistake. Not to mention unfair to Amarinder.
It's a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake, in my view, because you've humiliated your own chief minister, the man who won you the last election, and you've proved once more that the Congress party is controlled from Delhi. Whichever state the chief minister, comes from, is irrelevant. And is that a good thing to do? I mean, is that going to reassure the farmers who've been agitating that actually what they've got to do is come and sit outside Rahul Gandhi's office to be able to get heard? It makes no sense to me at all. Other than the fact that Sidhu has some kind of special connection with the dynasty that gives him, that has turned him. They've made a non-political leader into this giant figure for what?
Okay,
Can he win the election? We have to wait and see.
We absolutely do not know. What we do know, Rahul, is that the Congress continues to be a divided house, despite the fact that there is this attempt to take two caste groups along, something that Tavleen says is counterintuitive to the very idea of Sikhism, though on the ground, of course, these things often play out differently, just like saying, there's no caste in Muslim society, but there is. The fact is that the Congress is faction-ridden. The fact is that the Congress has had to step in today to do damage control and say both men, the Chief Minister and Sidhu, will lead the party into the polls after the initial gaffe, making it very clear that Sidhu is going to be the Chief Ministerial face. So if Sidhu is going to be the Chief Ministerial face, I'm just not convinced that Captain Amarinder is going to be that assuaged, and anything can still happen. Rahul?
True, anything is possible. And in fact, I agree with most of the panelists. Congress basically in last 6 months created a mess out of what was happening in Punjab. And even the solution which it has offered, so some sympathizers might see that der aaye durust aaye, but in history of Indian politics, changing chief minister in last 6 months or 8 months have hardly yielded any positive result. I can give you example. Delhi, you changed Sahib Singh Verma and got Sushma Swaraj. BJP did not win. In UP, BJP changed Ram Prakash Gupta, Kalyan Singh got Rajnath Singh. They didn't win. Even in Andhra or Maharashtra, Congress tried to change their chief ministers between 2009 and 14, and it did not win.
So are you saying the timing is a problem, because one state you
No,
haven't
it's not
named one state you haven't named is Gujarat, where the BJP did just replace its chief minister.
So it's not big because of changing the chief minister. It depends on how deeply entrenched your party is in the state, right? So in a state where you think that your chief minister has become unpopular, and then you are changing chief minister, as Tavleen ji pointed out, there must be some issues associated with the party and the government and the CM. What are you doing to basically do about those issues? Second, this bad idea about Indian politics, and not just politicians are responsible for it, but we analysts are also responsible, where we reduce voters to only their caste and religious identity. Voters not only, like, of course, those things matter. Identities matter in every sphere of our life, so it matters in politics. But there are other things also which voters are going to take into account. Third, as you all rightly pointed out, the Congress leaders themselves are not convinced of the plan the party has set in motion, with appointing one chief minister and saying that this chief minister will not be leading the party in the next assembly election. You are of course undermining the authority of the chief minister even before his term began, right? So everything is now going to flow, if this is going to happen, flow from what Sidhu wants to happen in the party for next to 6 to 8 months. And more importantly, and we are not talking about it, Uttarakhand is also going to poll very soon. The person who should be in Uttarakhand campaigning for Uttarakhand Congress is busy in Punjab dealing with the different factions. So you are not going to only have problem in Punjab, but you will also have problem in Uttarakhand.
Yeah, that you're talking, of course, about Harish Rawat, who is the firefighter in Punjab and seen to be, by the way, the most popular Congress leader in Uttarakhand. So it again makes you wonder why he would be used at a time like this. And we'll ask Sujata to comment on that. But Hilal, you've had a very interesting comment on all that has gone on in Punjab. While there are Congress supporters certainly who say that a certain amount of smartness has returned to the Congress, they've shown political instinct, you think this is old world politics being applied here. But why is it different from, let's say, what the BJP has done in Karnataka or Gujarat?
Yeah. See, I think that, first of all, let me respond to a few comments which have been made first by Sujata. I disagree slightly that we have got a welfare state at the moment since 1991. What we have is actually sectoral charitablism. So political parties basically identify a sector and do tokenism, what Tavleen was saying. So that is actually a new terms of discourse, at least in the electoral politics. You have identified different constituencies and you think that this tokenism work. Now, if you compare BJP and non-BJP parties, BJP has got a certain interesting advantages. The advantage is that this tokenism is always supported by a second level of explanation, that is nationalism. So obviously they are doing the same thing, but they are providing a legitimacy to this tokenism by evoking the argument that this is in favor of, this is going to affect, this move is going to change the course of history, etc., by evoking either Hindutva or nationalism. So I think there is a difference. Now, because Congress has got tremendous intellectual investment. Remember that this party has got, even now, they have got very sharp mind people. But surprisingly, they still do not work on their weaknesses. They would like to compete BJP in its, or the Aam Aadmi party in this case, in a sphere which they have already contributed to them. Now the question arises, if that is the case, then what has really changed in last decade or so? One is professionalism in politics, that you have to fight election at every stage with full enthusiasm, and when you achieve success, you need not to be contented. You have to further explore it. and this makes this enthusiasm to achieve something makes Congress a defender surprisingly, and BJP as a challenger. BJP, despite the fact they are in power for more than 7 years, they are playing the role of a challenger. They are
Okay,
not
let
a
me ask you
defender.
this. This is a very interesting idea of sort of sectoral charitability as opposed to welfare or welfareism or even welfare capitalism. But if there's one thing that leaps out at you briefly, Hilal, I want to get a comment from Prabhjot of what the Congress has done wrong in Punjab in one sentence. What will it be?
I agree completely with Tavleen. I partly agree, I would say, because obviously caste is an important issue in Punjab. The reason caste has not yet translated into electoral politics are many, so I don't want to get into that, but that's true. That still the communal, I would say, not communal, but the community-oriented imagination of politics prevail in Punjab. I think that the ways in which Captain Amarinder Singh is sidelined and the ways in which Sidhu, who was basically coming from a different party, is not merely accommodated but promoted because certain kind of symbolism, I think that's a mistake.
Okay, let me briefly ask you, Prabhjot ji, and then I'll go to Sujata and Tavleen. Do you believe that Sidhu is the man perceived to be in charge, despite the fact that you have a different chief minister in Charanjit Channi? Or do you believe that the power struggle with these dual centers is now could still split the party? Because over the weekend, there were a lot of rumors that the party could split, one section could join hands with the Aam Aadmi party. Do you think at least that crisis is over, Prabhjot ji?
No, I don't think so, because rather, you see, the whole day yesterday, we were hearing Sujata is going to the chief minister, and there were celebrations. And at 4 o'clock in the evening, they said, no, Channi is in the run. Channi's name was not even mentioned even for deputy chief ministership at that stage. Mm-hmm. You see, when you arouse a certain section, which is majority community, the Jat Sikh community, you have given them the chief ministership, and suddenly you say, no, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen because the new chief, Punjab Congress chief, wants Dalit to be the chief minister of Punjab, and party again goes back, and then they decide, okay, Channi will be the chief minister. This is one. You see, and issues are like, for Punjab, I think politicians have been cut off from people. Punjab is facing plethora of problems. Suicides are highest in country, farmer suicides, drugs issues, major problem. Agricultural productivity is another problem. Farmers are on strike, employees are on strike, and then farm labor is in shortage.
So do you believe Prabhjot ji, that given these issues, the Congress in Punjab could split, or will it unite under these two leaders?
I don't. I think this vertical split will continue. It will deepen further. It will not heal. Like the groups won't come together, because you have heard Jakar today. Jakar saying, okay, why they have used this system, this name Hindu. I can't be the chief minister. So the Hindus are getting alienated from Congress. Why a Hindu can't be chief minister of Punjab?
Right. So that's an interesting point, because Sunil Jakar, and we'll bring up his tweet in a moment, on Twitter went on very publicly to dissent. His own name was doing the rounds for possible chief minister, and the MLAs I've been speaking to said that they didn't have a problem with this happening. So this is a kind of a hodgepodge still, according to Mr. Prabhjot Singh. Before I come to Sujata and Tavleen, sorry, Rahul, you were wanting to make a brief interjection. Can we go to Rahul Verma, please? Rahul, go ahead.
Yeah, just 30 seconds on why it seems that Amarinder Singh has become a liability for the party. Is that there were certain promises made during the campaign, especially the 18-point promises that were made. Out of those 18, 3 are critical issues. One, he promised that he's going to take action against corruption of SAD ministers, especially the Badal family. Nothing has happened on that. The drug menace, which Prabhjot ji is hinting at, there are some high-level politicians involved in that from both sides. No action has been taken on that. The third one is basically the desecration of Guru Granth Sahib and issues related to religion, which basically sparked in 2015. And the promise was made that people will be brought to justice. Nothing has happened on that. So what is basically the section which Amarinder Singh seems to be losing popularity is the religious right on among the Sikh groups.
That last is a very interesting point, because Congress legislators who've come on this program kept bringing up the third point. They said they kept going to Captain Saab and saying, kuch kariye, and kuch hua hi nahi. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Sujata, you've heard that the panel is certainly not convinced that the worst is over for the Congress. Would you like to respond?
Yes, what Prabhjot ji said and what Tavleen ji said, if you look at that, it's very strange that one person feels that the Jat Sikhs are going to be alienated, and I agree completely with Tavleen ji. And what I meant to say was that we are a welfare state, whether we like it or not. And when we are talking about somebody from the Dalit community, we must not forget that there are 34 Dalit reserve seats in Punjab, out of which 22 are with the Congress party. 4 are apparently with the AAP, or I think nine are with the AAP. So now when you're talking about this entire equation, what is happening? Shouldn't a person from another community be brought forward, or is it going to be only a Jat Sikh who's going to be becoming the chief minister every time? So again, that would be tokenism when we consider it in this particular manner. However, what I'm trying to say is a person from a different community has been brought in, and that is going to make a mark. And if the Sikhs actually believe that there should be no casteism amongst them, and there isn't any, then they will not be considering it on those lines. However, the 34 Dalit INC members are going to be represented by the chief minister. Now, Mr. Sunil Jakhar is obviously upset because his name was in the reckoning, and he has not been made the chief minister. So I expect him to do that, because in the Congress party, this is very different from the BJP. Congress members are always speaking their mind out in public, and everybody speaks out about how there's factionalism. They don't think about it. But then they come together. When it comes to the party, because everybody wants to be a Congress person.
Well, hang on. Firstly, let me take that to Tavleen, but that did not quite happen. Amarinder Singh, in his comments on Navjot Singh Sidhu, called the man a disaster, said that he was a national security threat. So that's Sunil Jakhar you're seeing there, who was hoping to be chief minister and hasn't become chief minister. There's been a lot of personal tutu meme, which has gone beyond the pale of what an organization would actually allow, and it can create a sense of disarray and chaos in the mind. The voter might think that the party is in disarray and chaos. Tavleen, but there is one point to what Sujata has said, that if caste doesn't matter in Sikhism, why have you never had a Dalit as chief minister before? Isn't that a kind, there was, I think, one of the Hindi papers, Dainik Bhaskar, called Amarinder Singh's government a farmhouse government, and said, ye farmhouse government, chalo isse chutti mili hame. So there is some sort of perception of elitism, of a lack of action, of a lack of energy. Much as Amarinder may have been admired, almost ironically, more outside of Punjab than inside of Punjab.
Look, one is Sujata is in La La Land if she thinks that you can speak your mind in the Congress party. Maybe you should re-examine your position. Nobody can speak their mind to the dynasty. Okay, try telling Sonia Gandhi that her children made a mistake by promoting Sidhu. Just try it. Okay, give it a shot. You won't survive for one day. So let's leave that out. Secondly, let's stop this Jat Sikh nonsense. Zail Singh was not a Jat Sikh. I don't think Beant Singh was a Jat Sikh. And it's not about that. It's about the mistakes that were made. And I totally agree with whoever it was who said, that the three promises, for a start, I can't understand why on the drugs issue, no action was taken against people who I don't wish to name, but everybody knows exactly who was responsible. And, everybody, when he became chief minister, everybody thought that Amarinder would make sure that punishment was, dealt to because the drugs is a big issue. And now you've got the same, and, the drugs guys, it's called in Punjabi border vana, to cultivate the border. The same guys are now have got drones bringing in arms and Pakistani propaganda. It's the same gang, and they have to be controlled. And he made a terrible mistake by not doing it, right? So I think that was one of the things. If I was, in the Congress party, I would have said, listen, let's rectify those things. Those are the mistakes. I don't even believe that the sacrilege issue was as important as the drugs issue, as, some sort of action on, to show that the Congress party meant what it said, that it would deal with this problem. And it's a very, very serious problem because, as I said to you, it's those same guys who are now using drones to drop arms into the thing, And
Okay.
I myself have had cousins who've been this border vowing business. They kaka ji ki kar rahe ne ji aajkal ji border var rahe ne. It's a very common, that border is very porous. And, as a soldier, he's spoken very strongly, Amarinder Singh, against the arms being dropped. But he hasn't said much about the drugs, which is a very, very serious problem.
Okay, before we take last comments, let's just listen to the comments of the new chief minister, his swipe at the Aam Aadmi party, his almost like a counter positioning to Captain Amarinder's associated privilege, describing himself as a son of the soil. Let's play this out and I'll come to you, Hilal, right after that.
पंजाब प्रदेश कांग्रेस कमेटी ने कांग्रेस कमेटी के प्रधान नवजोत सिंह सिद्धू जी ने एक आम आदमी नू ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਨਾ ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਆ ਬੈਠਾ ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਪੱਲੇ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਜਿਸ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਜੰਮਿਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਛੱਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਥੱਲੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਾਂ ਟੋਬੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਟੋਬੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਾਰਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੂੜੀ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਪਾਂਡੂ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਕੰਧਾਂ ਤੇ ਫੇਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਮੇਰੇ ਫਾਦਰ ਨੇ ਹਰ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟੈਂਟ ਲਗਾਏ ਸ਼ਸ਼ੀ ਪਾਜੀ ਅੱਜ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਗਰੀਬ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਬਿਠਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਮੇਰੀ ਔਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਔਕਾਤ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ
So this is quite interesting, Hilal. It is the exact opposite of the image of Captain Amarinder. And yet you are not convinced that it will have any worthwhile consequence. Go ahead. Last comments, Hilal.
I think if you closely listen to what he is saying, in early days of my career, when I started interviewing politicians, someone actually gave me a very good advice that for first 15 minutes you just listen because the politician is going to tell you main aur mera sangharsh and things like that. So the victimhood is something which is deeply ingrained in our politics, and this victimhood is something which I call tokenism. So the language is quite same. There is nothing new. Look at Chaiwala to Aam Aadmi to Chadu, etc.
But so it's worked for them. It's worked for in Modi's case, it worked. In Kejriwal's case, it worked. Why do we feel it won't work with the Congress?
Because both of them providing some extra explanation to their victimhood. For Modi, it was nationalism. For Kejriwal, anti-corruption, etc. And now governance. But I don't think any catchword, any catchphrase is being provided by Congress. I don't think so.
I think that's a very interesting point by Hilal, Rahul, that you need another layer. You need an idea to attach itself to your identity politics. And that's what's missing in Punjab.
True, I agree with him. Politics is, at the end of the day, contest over ideas. Two things which we keep making mistake as politicians and as analysts. What we do is basically look politics only as caste combination. Right, so all parties in Punjab will basically try to have this Sikh plus Dalit combination because these two communities make up 60% of the vote. So what Congress is trying to play, because Shiromani Akali Dal combined with BSP, so Sikh plus Dalit vote, Aam Aadmi party promised that it will bring a Dalit deputy CM. So you had nothing else to offer, so you thought of this formula. Second is what you can call as tokenism or welfare or something. All parties basically try to distribute goodies. So this has basically become a game like poker. Voters are not enamored by this. In a poker game, you have to put these two things, caste and gifts, before the game begins.
Okay,
Right? So
that's yeah. I think both of you have really, in a way, framed what the problem is. Prabhjot ji, if I had to ask you with your ear to the ground, who is ahead in terms of political advantage, party or leader? Who would you say it is?
You see, normally it should be party, but now of late, leaders have become more important now since, like, as we have been talking about it, in the last 6 months, if you read all media reports, they are about individuals, not about people or the
But
problem.
what is your feeling? What is your feeling? What are voters? Who are voters leaning towards?
People are going to win. Ultimately, people are going to win. And they're
No,
going
but
to
who?
tell the leaders, they are going to tell the leaders, this is what we want, not
But
what
do
you want.
you
Tell
believe
us.
that there's any one political party that has the advantage?
Right now, I won't say anything because the situation is so fluid, because different permutations, combinations are coming up, new parties are coming up, new alliances are coming up. So the picture will become clearer after first the Congress issue is settled, and let's
Do you
watch.
believe Captain Amarinder will stay with the Congress?
I have my doubts. Because
Yeah.
the way he spoke after quitting, it
Yeah.
looks like he wants to
Yeah,
stay in
that's a
Congress.
very, and Sujata, that would then defeat the purpose in a way of what has happened. Quickly, last thoughts, and then Tavleen can close.
Yes, as far as Captain Amarinder Singh is concerned, we must not forget that what he said before the last elections was that this was going to be his last election, and he wants to continue. So you have to make way for the next line. So that is one thing. So with all due respect to Captain Amarinder Singh, and he is a great politician, but I think we needed to have someone new. But one thing I must add is that the Congress party, what is required is this soft Hindutva that is being peddled by everybody, whether it is Aam Aadmi party or Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal. If you look at it, everybody is doing it. Now is the time to stop getting defensive, and it is the time to become, to come into the attack mode and snatch away the narrative from the BJP and get secularism back into the fray. I feel that the Congress party really does need to do it, and there are some voices that I'm hearing amongst them that that are trying to do it. Only then will politics change in this country.
Okay, I think the point is that Punjab, as it's an ironic state to make that point, because Hindutva doesn't have much traction at all, but there are issues related to Sikh identity, to religion, that are very much simmering under the surface, and there is a mass farmers' protest, and the cocktail of both of these can actually come up with all sorts of consequences. So there is discontent. I'm not saying the discontent of the farmers is related to religion. I'm just saying the discontent is there and it can be manipulated. Tavleen, last thoughts. Got to close that.
It's always stupid. It's a mug's game to make predictions in politics, but I'm going to make a prediction. Amarinder Singh is going to leave the Congress party, start his own outfit, which he nearly did last time when he was not named as chief minister. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he teams up with the BJP and you have a completely new equation in Punjab. So I agree with Prabhjot. It's so fluid that we don't know what's going to happen. But one thing I'm almost ready to bet on is that he's not going to stay in the Congress party.
All right. So then, instead of this being the last chapter, it may be the first chapter of a brand new book, and the closing and how it resolves itself. That story is still 4 months away. Thank you, Tavleen, Rahul, Hilal, Prabhjot ji, and Sujata, and to our audience. Thanks for watching. See you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.